Let me start my video off very seriously. All right, listen. Not necessarily a big fan of pulling up people's old tweets where they're being edgy or whatever in an attempt to cancel them. That being said, that's not exactly what John Swan was doing here when he pulled up these old tweets. You know, he's kind of showing a bit of hypocrisy here. And I think it speaks to a much greater, I guess, division in the so-called community, for lack of a better word. Let's take a look at what we have here. So we have a recent tweet from about 6 weeks ago from Bionic Pig, who's a YouTuber, a commentator with about 500,000 subscribers last I checked. He says, guys, it's okay. Everyone is just ironically being racist. Not sure what he's referring to, but, you know, he's definitely, you know, or not sure what he's referring to specifically, but he's definitely just saying, you know, oh, ironic racism isn't real. If you make edgy jokes or whatever, you're probably, you know, what they like to say is you're probably either racist or just super ignorant or something like that. Anyway. And then we have, of course, you know, all his old tweets where he's saying the N-word, you know, N-word, N-word, N-word. You know, am I allowed to say it just by reading it? I feel like, nah, YouTube's probably not going to like that. Wow, that's a lot of N-words. It's a lot of tweets with the N-word. And then John clarifies, you know, he's not being racist, they're just edgy jokes, but I find it really ironic that he's trying to rip on edgy humor when he made the exact same jokes just a few years ago. And keep in mind, this is not some old, like, oh, well, he was like 12 when he made these tweets or whatever. This guy's like in his 20s or whatever. And this is only like 3 years ago, back in 2017, you know, at the peak of anti-SJW culture when, you know, edgelord humor or something was, I guess, at an all-time high in the mainstream on the internet. Anyway, he responds to this saying, yeah, true, I was an edgelord once because I was stupid. And everybody I was hanging around also thought it was funny. But I grew up and realized how completely stupid I was. This is not exclusive to Bionic Pig. This is not something he just made up or whatever. This is something I've been noticing on the internet for the past year or so. This phenomenon where these, you know, really formerly edgy creators will go through this, like, come to Jesus moment. They'll be like, oh my god, I used to be super racist and edgy, bro, but now I've learned. And, you know, it begs the question, it's like, did these people learn anything? Like, what did they learn? Like, what, you made an edgy tweet one day? And you were like, ah, shit, dude. Wait a minute now. I am adding to systemic racism. I'm perpetuating. I'm feeding real racists or something like that. No, you're just making a joke. Do you think anybody actually cares? Listen, if you're new to my channel, maybe you look at these tweets or whatever and you think this is bad or horrible or whatever. I could give less of a shit. I could care less. I just find it funny when, like, in 3 years, suddenly you just go through this, like, transformation. You learn, like, oh, I've grown as a person. I'm matured. You were an adult when you made these. It's not like you were, like, 12 and then, like, you're 18 or whatever. You have a completely different sense of, you know, morals or beliefs or whatever. You made these tweets, like, 3 years ago. Maybe that's a long time by internet standards, but in real life, that's not necessarily that, you know, crazy amount of time. And I always have to wonder, like, when I see tweets from people like this, it's like, did you grow up and did you learn? Or did you just go with the masses? Because nowadays, edgy humor, yeah, it's always going to have a place on the internet, but in terms of mainstream circles or whatever, the commentary community especially used to be crazy edgy. And now they've kind of, like, pretty much all of them have really, really dumbed it down. Some, you know, to appeal to children, but some people just dumbing it down just so that they can, you know, appeal to an audience that, just does not stand for this type of humor in any way. And so I have to ask myself the question, it's like, do you believe in what you're saying? Or are you just changing your humor to fit with what's popular today? If in 3 years from now, edgy humor becomes, like, super major popular again, if, you know, SJWs are the forefront of the circus, like, are you going to go back to being edgy again? And people are gonna pull up these, you know, virtue signaling tweets from 3 years ago, and you're gonna be like, well, I used to think, you know, edgy jokes contributed to racism, but now I don't think that anymore. Like, are you just gonna constantly flip? Because it's gonna happen. It's gonna flip. You know, right now, it's not cool to be edgy anymore. What happens when it flips again and it's cool to be edgy again or whatever? Are you going to still be, you know, a stick in the mud? Are you still going to virtue signal? Or are you going to go back to being edgy again? Are you just going to do whatever is popular at the time? It's possible that maybe, yeah, he He just thinks that edgy jokes contribute to real racism. He genuinely believes that. It's possible, but I have a hard time buying it from not just him, but just people like him who are just like, oh, I matured, I grew as a person. They're words on a screen. I'm sorry, but I don't think that contributes to any sort of, you know, evil scheme behind the scenes or whatever. I don't know. So my boy Lina jumps in there. He says, let's be real, Chief. If the landscape hadn't shifted in the way it did, you'd still be making the same jokes. The least you could do is not morally grandstand over it now that you're all reformed. Which is true. I agree with that. He says, you mean if the world hadn't become more aware of racial profiling and how much the word truly affects people? Yeah, you're right. It's about content, not about racism. As if it was any less of a huge social issue 3 years ago than it is now. You know? It's not like George Floyd happened and all of a sudden we just figured out, oh shit, dude. Fucking, racism. You know what I mean? Like, it's always existed. It's always been at the forefront of, social politics, of discussions. Like, we've been aware of this for a very long time. This is not new. So, John Swan hops in here, he says, so using your logic, you weren't just an edgelord, you were actually unironically racist and racially profiling people. Somebody says, John, I have mad respect for your views and opinions, but don't you think anyone that makes mistakes can realize what they were doing was shit and advocate against it? I think some people are capable of growth. He says, oh, I 100% agree that you can change as a person, but I'm not making that argument. He just said that making jokes is racially profiling, when literally just a few tweets ago he called himself an edgelord. So which one is it? Unironic racist or edgelord? Bionic Pig jumps in here and says, it's like talking to a wall with a lot of you guys. It just seems like you are all really trying to convince yourselves that it's okay for you to say the N-word now. Well, it's not. Once again, times change. What changed? The only thing that changed is that one form of humor is not that popular anymore amongst the masses. I mean, 3 years ago, everybody was edgy. Now, what's popular is a diversion from that type of humor, which is fine. If you don't like that type of stuff, that's fine. It's just funny to see these, like, radical shifts, like, oh, I changed, I want to be a better person now. It's just like, it just comes off as just really, if you want to just not be edgy anymore, that's totally fine. But this, like, grandstanding, you know, arguments of, like, oh, unironic racism is still racism or whatever, when you were literally unironically racist, but then you want to say, oh, I was never racist. It's just confusing. John says, whoa, I absolutely do not use that word. That is a massive generalization, mate. He says, my bad, I was just assuming that because the group that normally comes after me does. Then Ricky Berwick, of all people, hops in here and says, stop trying to be woke, it's fake. That's going to age more than typing the N-word on your Razer RGB keyboard. Base take from Ricky Berwick, honestly. And I think it speaks to a lot of people. You know, circles on YouTube that used to be, like, edgy, you know, commentary or whatever, this skeptic community, which had their own host of problems, you know, but anyway, just these communities that used to be, like, edgy or whatever, or used to, say that, hey, look, jokes are not, you know, racism, you know, jokes that you make are not necessarily indicative of, true feelings behind the person or the persona or whatever. To see them go from this to, like, 3 years later, like, oh, you need to be conscious of what you're saying because it could portray real thoughts that, you know, add to racism overall. It's just strange. It's just like, does anybody not see that this comes off as, like, super fake? You know? I don't know, man. This stuff just, like, it's kind of fascinating to me to see, like, the social patterns change and how, you know, people who were super hard on one side of the aisle have to adjust and, you know, respond to backlash. It's just kind of interesting to me. Me personally, I think I'm always going to be the same. I just don't really care that much. It's interesting to me. It's fascinating to me how these people have to bend and swerve around this type of, you know, performance or whatever. But to me, it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. You want to make your jokes? Go ahead and make your jokes. You don't want to? That's also fine. I think it's just that simple. Anyway, guys, you guys hear the music. I'm going to get out of here. My name's AugieRFC. I will catch you guys tonight on the podcast. RFC After Hours live on this channel. See y'all later, everyone. Peace out.